Good morning, everybody. How are you? I hope you're having a great Wednesday morning. My name is Shannon McDonald, and I'm the Associate Director of Corporate Education and Custom Training at UC San Diego Extension. And I want to welcome you to the Leadership and Management webinar series. Today, we are here to talk about happy high-performance teams, and we have a wonderful speaker for you today. Her name is Nguyen, and she's a consultant, instructor, and managing partner, and it'll be a treat to hear from her today on this very important and timely topic. We also had another speaker today, Marty Wartenberg, but unfortunately he could not be here with us this morning, but Karen has a wonderful presentation, like I said, in store for you, and we're excited for what she has to say. All right, so a little bit about today's agenda. Welcome again. This session is being recorded, so I want to make sure you do know that. And again, since it is being recorded, this will be made available to you after the presentation. So you can look back on our website at extension.ucsd.edu/levelup in about 7 days or so, and that session will be up there. Also, if you're attending today, you'll get an email with the link to this session, in addition to some resources that we may have for you after today. Then I'm going to go into a little bit about UCSD Extension. Then we're going to kick the presentation off with Karen, and we're going to do the Q&A today via chat. The chat box. So any comments or questions you may have, we'll address those at the end of the session today, but go ahead and utilize that chat box in order to put your, like I said, your comments and questions in there. Okay. All right, so a little bit about UC San Diego Extension. We are the continuing education arm of the university. We've been around for about 60 years now, and what we do is we focus on professional education and personal enrichment programs. So we have about 4,500 courses and 100 different certificate programs spanning a wide range of topics, from business science and technology to engineering, education, healthcare, etc. These courses really are focused on critical skill development and real-world knowledge, and actually are taught by experts in the field. So we want you to learn today and apply tomorrow. Really focuses on current cutting edge skills and advancing your career and personal growth. Speaking of which, we have an extensive amount of leadership programs that we offer, which goes in line with the theme of the webinar series we have today. We have 4 major programs that we offer: the Leadership and Management Essentials series. Again, those are workshops and webinars that we offer that are short format for those of you who are looking for just nuggets of information. Then we have a full leadership and teamwork certificate, which is really geared towards the emerging leader. This is an online program focusing in on leadership, teamwork, and project management skills. Then we have our 2 flagship executive programs, Leadership and Management Program and the Executive Perspective for Scientists and Engineers. These are longer format programs, 5 to 9 months long, really focused on mid to senior level professionals. And we're taking applications for all those programs right now, and you can learn more at extension.ucsd.edu/custom programs. If you're a part of an organization who would like to bring some of these offerings to your workplace, we can do that, including this very fine topic we have today. If you're feeling inspired to treat your employees to some wonderful education, we can bring all of these things and more to your organization. We can customize them to meet your needs, including format, delivery method, what the curriculum that's involved, and tailoring it really to what your needs are within your organization. And finally, our webinar series does continue after today. Today is Happy High Performing Teams, but we have 3 more in the works for you, including a topic on talent acquisition, customer service culture, and the importance of a business mentor. And so again, you can register for all those at extension.ucsd.edu/levelup. And again, those past webinars that we have, including today's webinar, will be posted there as well, and you can see several others that we've done in the past. Okay, on with the show. I want to turn it over now to Karen Nguyen for Happy High Performance Teams. Take it away, Karen.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I am going to see right here. Shannon, we're good to go?
We're good to, yep, you're good to go.
Yep. And then, So Marty is, my name's Karen Nguyen, everybody, and this, Marty is actually, there's a webinar on October that Shannon mentioned on Business Mentor. Marty's actually is my mentor, and he's not here today, and he wanted to wish all of you a happy Wednesday, and he apologized, devastated that he can't be here with us today due to personal emergency. Marty and I have been working for the longest time. When I met Marty, I was probably only barely giving birth to my first daughter, and now she just turned 16. So this is me on the left and Marty on the right. And the way how our team works is that I do all the hard work and Marty gets to have all the fun. So Marty's actually a very humble executive, very humble gentleman, and he always introduces me as his very good friend or his partner, when in actuality, I'm actually his mentor. He tells everyone that we make a perfect team because I bring in the beauty, because I bring in the brains and he brings the beauty. So Marty and I go back and forth, starting with this question on, is a happy workplace a prerequisite or a consequence to a motivated team? Is one of those chicken and egg situation. Is happy high performance team really a product of a happy workplace, or is a happy workplace a product of a happy high performance team? Which one? We don't know. But one thing we do know is that, is happiness universal? Does it just apply here in the US? Because the way Marty has it, for all his experience at Wind River Systems and doing over 350 total projects internationally across multiple companies as a CEO, one thing he did find that is universal, that works, is that there is one constant variable, which is that creates a high performance team, which came down to a technical writer named Beth. Beth is the lowest ranking in the team, but the most important in the team. And the way he explained it, because Marty and I teach this class for UCI, and we also just recently did one for the PMI OC chapter for event seminar topic for 4 hours on this webinar. And he said that basically Beth is the spark plug and the energizer bunny for the team. She brought food around. She makes sure that everyone is comfortable, whatever they need. And she also ensured that there is milestones and they celebrated each milestones. And that is super important when it comes to creating a happy, high performing team. Why? Because as you see, Evan Ash is a psychologist, and she did this study where she found out that to create a happiness at work, you need at least 7 optimum conditions: quality leadership, friendship, open and honest communication, respect and communication, appreciation, challenges and opportunity, positive flow, right temperature, and natural lighting. One would say, hey, why would you need a right temperature and natural lighting? Because you need to feel comfortable at work, both not just at work per se, but also virtually, right? I always say to my team, hey, do you need a desk? Do you need lamps? What do you need? Go ahead and purchase it, and I'll go ahead and pay for it. Because why I want to make sure that they are comfortable is one of those things that you want to ensure that you're thanking them for all the work, their hard work, and that you want to make sure that they're taken care of. I have a good friend who is actually a managing partner at Gallup, and they have this Q12 survey. And this Q12 survey, I know I work for Kia Motors America. I know I have some of the Kia Motors ex-employees and employees on this call, so thank you so much for your time. And we always have this survey called Q12 Engagement Survey, and they ask 12 basic questions. And one of the 12 basic questions, the most controversial and effective one, is, do you have a best friend at work? And everyone was always, when we first got that question, we were so alarmed and we thought, that is so strange to be asking that question. And what Gallup found is that When you have a best friend at work, you actually stay longer with the company because you have someone to confide with, you have increased employee engagement, you have confidence, you have emotional, you build trust, you have teamwork, and you have loyalty. Not just loyalty, but Gallup calls it emotional loyalty. And what that means is that you're okay picking up extra work. You're okay staying late at work. Because why? You're helping your best friend. Because we spend a lot of time at work and we want to make sure that all these 7 themes are met. You'll see that these themes are carried out through this webinar. And what if people aren't satisfied? I mean, what other ways do you motivate a high performance team other than happiness, right? I mean, how do you get a high performance team who don't really care about working together and being happy? Do you adjust your approach in a different culture or a virtual environment? Certainly, we're in this pandemic right now, and we have to make all sorts of adjustments, starting with all of you right now being on the call. Thank you so much for taking your time to be in here, logging in, and trying to improve and get knowledge to yourself, right? So if people didn't care about happiness, well, cash is still king, right? You can incentivize them by cash. And about like a couple of years ago, I used to be the customer satisfaction manager for Kia Motors, and I run the incentive recognition reward system for Kia Motors under the after sales division. And what we found out is that other than cash, you can supplement them by moving into or towards longevity and recognition rewards, because that provides sustainment and recognition. I remember one year when we were doing so well at Kia Motors, and not only did we get a bonus when the iPad mini just came out, the organization gave everyone a mini for Christmas gifts. So every time I look at an iPad mini, I think about Kia Motors. So those are some of the things that you could use to also create happiness. And if people didn't care about happiness, then find out what they do care about, right? What are they excited about? What do they do to wake up? Not everyone cares about happiness. Some people care about opportunity. Some people care about learning, which you guys are in right now. Some people just care about, I don't know, maybe advantageous to themselves. So the one thing we do realize is that you cannot escape Patrick Lencioni 5 dysfunctional teams, right? And what he says is it starts with trust, because without trust, team members will hesitate to ask for help. They will conceal their weaknesses, and they don't hold each other accountable. Once you don't hold each other accountable, you don't have a common thread and you don't have a united front to be a team. Forget about happiness. What about just being a team, right? So what he says is that as a leader, you need to go first. Basically, you need to lead by example. You should be looking for commitment, getting buy-in, not consensus, but buy-in, right? As people express their opinion and feel heard, and uncover problems with solution being considered. That's what's important. And you'll find out that the Google methodology starts with all that. People need to feel like Patrick Lencioni says in this quote, remember, teamwork begins by building trust. And the only way to do that is to overcome the need for invulnerability. We have to together to create a happy team that we should be able to express each other's feelings, to talk about things, to communicate openly and not be fearful that we're going to get in trouble or that you're going to report us to HR, right? And the irony to all this is that if you look at this slide that I created, John Kassenbach, right, the author that wrote The Wisdom of Team, said, in order to have a high successful team, you have to have complementary skills, committed to a common purpose, and mutually accountable. Everyone needs to be mutually accountable. You can't just simply be a star player and just basically selfishly for yourself, right? You have to work together and leverage each other's strength to be successful. And the funny thing is that in military and sport, they spend all their time and investment on building the team and perfecting that team so that they can be the winners of all winners, the best of the best, right? You look at the Marines, you look at Lakers, you look at all those teams. How many times and how many hours do they spend together perfecting their team and understanding each other's skill? But when it comes to the workplace, we pay the price, right? It's called on-the-job training. There's no investment for us to, oh, let's get together to build our team. Let's get together to have multiple happy hours so that we can spend each other and understand each other's personality and skill set and idiosyncrasy. There's no such thing as that. As a certified project manager, we are ingrained in understanding the Tucker model. Since 1965, the Tucker model gave birth. And what that says is that I will start with in the US. We spend all of our time in the storming stage. What it means in the Tucker model is you go through the forming, which is starting to build a team. Then you get to know the team before you normalize the team and start performing. And the sad thing is once you start performing, the project is over, right? In US, we spend all of our time in this stage 2. We fight, we can't get along or we disagree and all those things. But we don't spend a lot of time in the forming stage, getting to know one another, building relationship like Asia and Latin America. They take a long time in stage 1 to build that relationship so that when we get into doing real business, it all comes down to trust. I understand who you are. You're my family. I know your family. I know your wife, all those things so that they can go into work and start being productive together and be profitable. But in Northern Europe, actually, the irony is they go straight to norming because they have the beauty of what we call greater acceptance of hierarchy, right? So they don't really need much of relationship building. They can go straight into norming, basically getting to work so that we can perform together. So think about it when you're doing projects, when you're doing international projects. I teach the international program for UCI and undergrads for China. And there's multiple cross-layer culture that even I'm Chinese and I'm still learning all these things. And I spend a lot of time forming because in order to engage the student, do you know how hard it is to teach virtually and to teach in China undergrads when there's cultural changes and people are having difficulty understanding jargons. So I spend a lot of time getting to know them, they getting to know me. I make sure in a virtual environment in this pandemic that we should try to turn on all of cameras so that we can build that relationship, so that we can have those engagement, so that we're comfortable with one another. I always start by telling them, hey, I know it's 6 a.m. there. Please turn on your camera. We do not judge you by how you look. We want you to participate. We want you to learn. We want you to grow because we are in it together as a team. So as a leader, be thinking about that. How many times do you go into meetings? A lot of time it's also the company culture, right? How many times do you go into meetings and there's 60 participants, but only 3 camera shows? You're not going to get engagement. You should try to make your team feel comfortable. Make sure they're engaged. Make sure they communicate with one another. It's so much more now in this virtual environment. It is the very reason why Shannon and I decided to do this webinar for you guys so that you can have that there are hope, that there are opportunities to create a high performing team. And at the end of this slide, there is actually, we provide it for you. There are questionnaires and performance assessment by grading. You can do this quite often as a leader, and you can grade yourself because that's an indicator to show, is your team successful right now doing the project? You use this tool, right, as a chance to make your team successful, your project successful. And if you get a low score, you should have those conversations with your team, with your sponsors and key stakeholders. So one of the things that Marty and I always joke around when we teach at UCI or different universities and seminars is we say, hey, as a smart project manager, you should know that you're in trouble before you get in trouble. And so I actually do this quite often. I actually even do it as a professor and when I'm teaching. So it's not just with my team. The reason why is because the cost of building a good high performing team, it takes time, it takes money, it's not cheap. And companies don't really invest in that because why? It's the same argument as quality. We all know, especially for manufacturing, R&D, we all know that quality is important, but do we spend a lot of quality and time on it? So those are one of those things that you should be thinking as a project manager. How can you do better? How do you create those common goals, right? How do you look for leadership within yourself and to create for your team, right? How do you empower decision-making? How do you open those conversations, right? And build those mutual trusts. When I was running my team, I usually start what you call, I have daily scrums, and because I manage huge projects and international projects, at certain projects, I have 60, 75 engineers reporting to me across the nation. So I try to do daily scrums with my project managers. And what we call is we do lightning round. And the lightning round is we can just talk about a topic like, hey, what's your favorite pet? And everybody goes around and talk about, I don't know, their dog, their fish, their cat. And that's only to build relationship. It's just to humor the situation and get them engaged and make them feel comfortable. Because today I learned, like before the call, I learned that Shannon had a dog. Oh, that's cool. So I know that she is a dog lover. Well, when you know that, then you know that you can converse with her in a different situation inside and outside work other than just work itself, right? So you ask your team, what is it that is unique for you to build a successful team? And there are so many things, these things can be taught as a leader. And there are so many books about it and so many YouTube videos that you can learn if you wanted to learn. Because building a team actually requires the best of the best. What if you don't get the best of the best, right? You still need to pull your team together and empower them. And in this pandemic, what is it that you could change the game, have them feel connected? I'm gonna go off my virtual so that I can show you how it's like to feel connected. And so let me see what it is. And today, actually I got home last night very late from work, and I got this in the mail because we are kicking off our 2021 planning for next year. And I got this from a vendor. So you could do this like this. It doesn't cost too much money, and the whole team got it. And this is to plan the strategy. So here it is. And in the back is an agenda, because we cannot, it's an agenda, and we cannot get together, right, in this situation, but you can still make it fun. So for our team, we created bingo. So hopefully, guys, after this call, I will be joining this meeting and winning a car. And then there's also their lunch is being ordered for virtual lunch. And there's a full agenda that tells me what it is. So we're starting with, right after this call, we're starting with virtual lunch. And we're having meeting goodies to keep us all awake, right? And in case we get tired, there's green tea, boost to get us awake. There's also fruity yogurt to keep us awake, and there's also a stress ball. This doesn't cost too much for your team, guys. If you're a leader, you could contribute and do it. It's part of creativity. And because we can't hold happy hour doing the virtual, right? They also invite us to happy hour. I hope that there is a bartender available to teach me how to do my happy hour mix. See? There you go. And that starts after the meeting at 5:30. There are so many things that you could do to, like I said, to create and change your game. It doesn't have to be, as a leader, we have to think outside the box, right? It doesn't have to just be at status quo. And that is what your team appreciate. That is what they want, right? It's not about, I mean, it's like, do you care about them? They want to show that, oh yes, I am giving. So in all of my daily scrum, I always talk about what you guys know as a project manager, what you did yesterday, what you did today, what are your impediments. I add one thing, which is giving credit. Oh, congratulations, Sam, thank you for getting this done for us today. I also carry this in my household. In my household, because I know that my girls can't go out, they can't be with their friends, they have to, it's not a normal life, and they have virtual schooling all day long, so they're exhausted. So what I always try to do in the dinner table is I talk about in this order. One bad, what's the bad thing that happened today? Okay, you failed the test, or you didn't do well on your test. One good, and one thing you're grateful for. So that when things are bad, you remind yourself, oh, you know, I'm very grateful that I'm healthy, right? My mom still have a job, or I still can talk to my friend virtually. So try to implement those things to your team and create those things. I hold those daily meetings with them. You don't know how many times I call them by phone, by team meets, by virtual, Instagram, whatever it is to keep them connected. How do you know if you did all those things that you do have a happy performing team? Well, the one thing you know for sure is they cooperate. They pick up your phone, right? They do the very best they do every single day when they wake up. You ask them to do something, they do it. And there is a common goal. But the major key indicator is fun. It's fun to come to work. It's fun to log in at a webinar, right? It's fun to just talk to your team, right? And try to give them breaks. Let them go on PTO, because we all need those breaks. So in summary, Marty and I talked about this, and we've been doing this for a long time. We found that in order to create a high, happy performance team, there are 4 key performance that we would like to share with you. 2 of them are from high achievement, and 2 of them are from engagement. The first one is you have to have a common goal and vision. Like Nelson Mandela says, action without vision, it's only passing time. Right? Vision without action is merely a dream, but vision with action can change the world. So ask yourself and ask your team, how do you know if your team is aligned with project vision, right? Get your team involved. It's not just your team. So we have a company, vision and goals. We also have department vision and goal, and I have my own team vision and goal, because I know exactly what I want and how I want to achieve for the year. So I'm just in the midst of right now planning for 2021. So we go 2021 tactical plan all the way to 5 years out. So make sure you have a strategy map. Make sure you have clear action plans, right? Quarterly meetings, and you meet frequently to check with your team to make sure they're doing what they need to do to meet those goals. Make sure the standards are high, because it's no fun if you're just having easy standards, right? What are they here to achieve? We all want those standards to keep us high. Another high achievement is number 2, there is a clear accountability and performance reporting in place. So you ask yourself, do you have a regular measure and reports in the performance team? So when I was running a call center, we used to have this computerized board. And back then, even in 1980s and 90s, we had it projected to the wall, and you can see real time what the metrics is. Because in call centers, there's so many things to be graded on, right? Your inbound call, your outbound call, your customer satisfaction goals. So make sure it's clear, it's visible, not just for your team, but the leadership that is walking around, other teams that are walking around, because if they see that, hey, Karen's at 99% inbound call, wow, why am I only at 82, right? Because remember what Peter Drucker says, you can't manage what you don't measure. So make sure you have clear accountability of those project plan, that you have effective team meetings, right? All my meetings are short to the point because you have to come prepared. And make sure your team are self-governance, right? Create a charter for your team. Make sure if you guys go by Robert's rule, go by Robert's rule. If you have specific needs for your team, make sure you make those visible and make sure that everybody buys into what you're agreeing on. Okay, so KPI number 3 in terms of our KPI for engagement, right? We picked diversity, and this is not just diversity of culture, right? Team profiling. This is diversity of talents, right? Diversity of industry. We want to get the best of the best. So ask yourself, is the diversity within your team an advantage or disadvantage, right? There's all these tests that you could do. Above the line are like education, degree, experience, expertise. Below the line are working together, the ability to get along, right? Put your ego to the side and work on that common trait for objective, right? To make sure, right? It starts again, leading by example. Does your team lead by example and mirror the behaviors of others? So take training in communication. So I also teach communication, I teach presentation skills, I teach public speaking, because why? It's really critical for you to communicate effectively, to lead your team of diversity of thoughts and diversity of skill sets. The last engagement, what we found is super helpful, is support of individual work and life goals. I know that this is not foreign for you guys, but again, we always have to be reminded, right? If it's so easy, why is it so hard to achieve? Why can't we all be Google? Why can't we all be Amazon, right? Because these things needs a combination of success factor. So ask your team, does your team understand and support each other's life goals, right? And do they pick up each other's work? Try to implement life work balances. I know that I just came back from my PTO and I only have 1 day with my staff before they go on PTO. So I'm just, well, I know I need a break. So make sure follow the golden rule, whatever you want for yourself, make sure that you want for others as well, especially your team members, right? Execute those peer mentoring, right? Communicate starters, issues at every meeting. Let them be able to speak and help each other to the best that you can. So at Google Practices, what they found out is that they have a division called Google Venture, and that's all the technology product. And what they found out in terms of happy, high-performing team and the workplace is that the most important to them is psychological safety. And what that means is that team members have to feel safe to take risks, right? And be vulnerable to speak in front of each other, right? Because if you're not able to take those risks and you're afraid that whatever you say, there's going to be an HR or a legal action lawsuit against you, well, then that's no fun, right? I know that it's easier said than done, but you look and reflect within your own team and your own company, right? How is it that you could change within yourself to implement these tips that I just shared and best practices that I just shared with you? Google also says that as a team member, we have to be independent, right? The dependability, team members get things done on time and meet high standards. You have to give them time to breathe. But to give them that, you have to give them structure. You got to give them meaning. You got to give them impact, right? It's a organization of innovation and support is what we're looking for. And I found this recently in the Glassdoor article that publishes best places to work in 2020. And if you look at it, look at these common themes that I just shared with you in half an hour, right? Starting with Southwest, it's great to work here, right? Because of the flexibility, the benefits, the cohorts, they call it cohorts because they care about each other, and the job is fun. Look at rank number 4, which is why we ask ourselves In-N-Out is so successful, right? Because we all know, all right, it's no secret that everybody's happy working In-N-Out because their supervisors understand them. They have flexible schedule. It helps that they pay higher than most restaurants and minimum wage, right? And they let you, basically they invest in their employee so that they can help each other climb, right there, and help each other grow. Number 3, DocuSign. How timely is that in a virtual environment? DocuSign is making more profits than you can ever imagine. But on top of all that practice, there's also these soft supportive skills, which is having a great work-life balance, right? They're very responsive. They should be in all means because they're DocuSign, they're electronics. Their management is very supportive. And these are the quotes that are from the employee. Bain and Company is a consultant company over in Massachusetts. And they said the company truly pays attention to personal growth and development. The supportive atmosphere is unique. Again, right? I mean, it's supporting your team. It's making sure that you do what's right. You do what you want. What you want for yourself is what you should do for others. HubSpot, ranked number 1 in best places to work in 2020 by Glassdoor, says it's a truly diverse and inclusive environment, right? We bring our true self to work. Isn't it an irony that it's the same standards as Google in what they call psychological safety, that we could be safe to come to work. We could say anything we want to say. And this is what we were saying in terms of helping each other, right? Being aware of each other, being reminded how we can move forward and how we can create a happy, high performance team. So Martin and I decided to go ahead and share with you additional resources that we found over the years. You can take this team assessment at any time and multiple intervals in your projects to make sure that you evaluate your team readiness for success. These are all the questions and the ranking. If you guys have any questions, you can also contact us. These are YouTube videos that will help you how to build happy high performance team, including the joint venture case study for the venture case study for Google and how to build a team building model. If you have any questions, we are available at our email or via LinkedIn. At this time, I will go ahead and hand it off to Shannon. And if you guys have any questions, this is the time to type now so I can answer them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen. What a very informative presentation and so timely as we're looking to connect with our teams in very different ways now. So thanks for all the wonderful tips. There has been a question so far. What was Karen's biggest challenge and how did she overcome it? And what techniques did she use?
Well, that is an excellent question. And those who are close to me on this call I would say my biggest challenge, and just so you know, I'm also a motivational speaker across the nation, and that is my pro bono work for my late husband at his Memorial Scholarship Fund. And my biggest challenge is when I was in the midst of planning for tactical goals, as long as also 5-year goals. And it's actually around this time. Next month will be 7 years. And right in the midst of planning those multi-million-dollar project, I got multiple calls, and I showed up in the hospital, and he passed away instantaneously from a heart attack. So imagine leading a team in India, over 90 engineers, and then you have to wake up every day and put your game face on and lead your entire team. And I would, at times, I have to thank my boss for this, and I'm always so thankful for his time and all of the people that are around me. And Matt, at times, he gave me flexibility. He gave me autonomy. He gave me trust. And he gave me time to make any mistakes I wanted to make. I would go to work sometimes, and I will probably work for 14 hours and cry for 2 hours. And there are times that I will cry for 14 hours and work for 2 hours. But I learned so much, and I became who I am today. And in the midst of this pandemic, when everyone is afraid to take risks, I actually formed 2 corporations. One of them is actually this slide, Exploratory Corporation, and I also formed an investment company on top of partnering with UCSD and UCI, so you can do it. You have to remember, like Patrick Lencioni says, it starts with you. You need to go first.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't, so thank you for that. You know, it's so important in this day and age, you know, that lots of people are going through so many interesting things in their life, you know, having highs and lows, and to find the strength to carry on, right? And that's what's so important, and find the way, the opportunity, and to persevere. And I think we're all navigating certain things right now. So thank you for sharing that story. I think it's so important to hear. Any other questions? Feel free to throw those in the box, in the chat box. Karen, can you tell us a little bit more about the longer version of this topic and what you might cover, you know, in a session that's maybe 4 hours? Or, you know, I know that you and Marty have done something like this before. What more in depth things do you go into during a longer workshop?
Right. So part of teaching and part of holding webinars is I find the questions are the most valuable and those most memorable. So if you have those questions, please ask them. Charles, I know you're on the phone. I know you're there. Connie, you're there. Jen, some of my students are with me today. So please ask those important questions. I know that you understand my style, so I welcome that very much. And what we are going to do with this course is we're in development and trying to kick it off for 2021, should UCSD want it, and UCI. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a lot of case studies on understanding what is it that companies are doing so well and other companies aren't doing so well. And so we would do a lot of hands-on role-playing, a lot of scenario-based. We are also going to go into corporation and trying to understand. It's almost like a graduate study. If you guys been to graduate study, there's a lot of case study scenario that you really have to go in and understand it. We will also be incorporating presentation skills, communication skills, strategy skills, all in part of these things. And then we're doing a lot of, how do you call it, Shannon, a lot of engagement exercises, right? Creativity. So when I was running my team, because it was so hard to run it virtually, I would mail out Play-Doh, little tiny Play-Dohs. Each one will get 3. And then we would just do a countdown, and they will have to, because we're a car company, they would have to build a car out of that Play-Doh. So we would do things like that. I remember some of my students right now are on the call. I remember we kicked off the meeting by basically how do you take your mask in a pandemic right now and translate it to your personality? And so we would go around and just introduce ourselves based on the mask, because everybody, I think that the mask has some kind of uniqueness in their personality. And if I had more time, I would have had them draw on the mask and then talk more about it. So we would be doing those type of exercises.
Great. I have a question for you. So, you know, there are some environments, work environments where pulling in the personal aspects and mixing them with professional isn't necessarily comfortable for folks, or it's frowned upon. What activities could you do that makes it, you know, not digging in too far to kind of create that safe environment that brings in those personal aspects without getting too deep?
Sure, that's a great question. What we try to do is, an example is like I showed you the virtual meetings. If you didn't want to get too deep into the personal aspects of it, you could do, I remember when I was at ADP, one of the largest payroll consulting company, what we do is I would, how do you call it, an ornament? I would just create a little laminated paper ornament, and it would be called King of the Jungle, because a call center is like 300 people.
Right.
And what we do is within the King of the Jungle, in the back, they would write things on what they thought why this person is, it's almost like employee of the month, but better. They would have quotes on why they thought they chose them. And people, it would be the most amazing thing. I combine basically the fish jar and the employee of the month together to create it fun. So anytime you get that ornament, it stays with you, and that could translate into points, and points translate into buying power. So you could buy for PTO, or you could buy for lunch or dinner or whatever it is. So there's a lot of things that you could do into it. And Shannon, I'm glad you asked that question, because those will be incorporated into that class that we will be teaching.
That's great. A couple questions here. How in depth are you going to go into the case studies to gain the insights of the team members? And how do you scale the studies to meet the needs of organizations?
Oh, that's interesting. That's good. That really depends on the case study that we're going to choose. I know for sure that we will be choosing the Google Venture, and depending on what it is, I can't tell you exactly what that is because we still haven't, this is fresh. We just, actually the way how I met Shannon is I just did an elevator pitch with her and she bought it right away. And so Shannon liked it so much with all of her leadership that they want to go ahead and kick this off for a UCSD. So I need time to think about all those things, but for sure I like to do those case study like a graduate type of case study where you go deep into understanding what works and what doesn't work. And we study the employee. And as a matter of fact, when I had internship with me, I would take my intern with me and go to Ingram Micro and just sit there in their office or in their lobby and just try to understand just what do you call it, verbal and nonverbal communication, just to understand that type of environment. So we get pretty deep into it because I think that is really truly understanding the root of the issue.
Right. We hear work-life balance is very important for employee engagement and team success. Is that possible in today's tech world where there is a lot of competition and companies are racing constantly to be the first in the market, where more emphasis is given to shareholder value than employee quality of life?
Mm-hmm. So what is the question? The work-life balance?
So we hear work-life balance is very important for employee engagement and team success, but is that possible in today's tech world?
I say it's definitely possible. I'm a technology manager. I did all that plus graduate school, plus a full-time job, plus running my own company. So every time I have a break, so graduate school, you know how you have like a 1 week break or 2 week break, I would just travel. Like I just came back from, I cannot believe, I am so stressed at work, and I actually took 5 days just to go to Utah to hike for 5 days at 99-degree weather. Who known that we would have 109 degrees here, right? Or 100+ degrees. But yes, you can. Anytime you can have those short breaks, either just, I don't know, alone time, you make it happen. That's what I always say. You want something, you make it happen. and I would just take any single break. Sometimes I would just go to the beach by myself. I bought myself a convertible so I could force myself to go to the beach and just sit there by myself and just detox. I think that it's really important that you have that and you make those time for yourself. You don't need the organization to do that for you.
I think it also spurs innovation, you know, getting away from it all. You know, you have those epiphanies when you step away. So as leaders, I think it's important to remember that and give that space for our employees when we can.
Yeah, and make sure that there's also like music, right? Silent music, there's yoga, there's meditating. All those things are very helpful. It just, the work-life balance doesn't really mean that you pick up yourself and go and then take your family to travel. I mean, sometimes you just need to be away, Shannon, like what you were saying.
Right. Take space.
Right.
Another question here. What's your thought on recognizing team members? Should it be the same for all or by individual? And what has been your experience?
That's interesting, because if you read all the books and everything, if you read all the greatest books, it's not about being consensus. I think that if you have consensus, then you won't have competition. And competition is what drives the company to success. And I know that a lot of managers play it safe and do it fair, but life isn't fair. And so I like to reward people based on utilizing their weakness and moving into their strength. So I like to do a lot of like, how do you call it? Most improved. Right? Because then it gives them hope, it gives them motivation, it gives them drive. At the same time, you also have to reward those who are truly rewarded, right? Not all things are equal. If you were very hardworking and you met your sales goal, you earn it by all means. So the way how you do that is you make it very visible so that when the rewards are given, it's not just like, oh, I favor that person. Right? So metrics is very important and transparency is important.
Agreed. That was the last question I see in the box, and we are creeping up towards our time. So I'll give you a couple more minutes here to share your questions or comments as we wrap up here, and I'll address them. But for now, I'll share my screen here and just remind you of some of the upcoming leadership and management webinar series we have continuing on after today. So I do encourage you to register. If you want to go back and again view this wonderful presentation we've had today, it will be posted on this website. In addition, you'll receive it in your inbox if you attended today. Those resources that Karen mentioned at the end will also be included in an email with a copy of this PowerPoint. So you will be able to see that assessment and those questions within that assessment. Also the all those wonderful videos that she shared at the end there that you can view as well. So before I wrap up, are there any more questions from anybody before we move on for today? Okay, well, Karen, I thank you so much. This has been wonderful, and I thank you all for attending today, taking time out of your busy schedule as well. We hope you found the content of this valuable. If you do have any additional questions for myself or Karen, feel free to reach out to us. Again, Karen's email will be in that PowerPoint presentation, the resources that you receive in your email, and then my email's on the screen here. So thank you very much, and have a lovely day and a great week.
Thank you.